Hi there everyone, welcome to my assembly this week. We're continuing to have a look at our British values, the important things which make us us and which we really value in our society in Britain. Last week we focused on democracy, so how our country is ruled and how we get a chance to have a say in that, and how the people are involved in making sure that's fair. You can see we've got the other values in front. So this week we're going to be focusing on law. So what do we mean by law? Well, I suppose one way to think about it and to link it to what you do in school is to think of laws as rules about behaviour, which are to make sure that people are doing the right thing. So you think about when we're in school, how we make sure that we do things and we follow rules to make sure that we do everything right. And that's really exactly what laws are, various different things in different ways, different parts of society that have different rules that we have to follow to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And I've just put some examples of the different things that we might consider on the screen. So you can think about the school. There's lots of different rules and laws there that we have to follow to keep you safe, but also to make sure that you're learning and doing the right thing in class. So I'm sure that you can think of some things that in a normal school day would be important to follow to keep us safe and to make sure our learning is as good as possible. On the other side, I've just got a photograph of some bike riders, some cyclists, and you can see that they're on a road. There's a traffic filter in the background, and you can probably see how there's a range of rules and laws around being safe on the roads, how to conduct yourself on the road with a bike, what vehicle drivers have to do, how you have to respond to the different filters and lights. I'm sure you can see how there's lots of rules and laws involved with that particular type of situation. And then in the bottom left hand corner you can see that I've just got some board games, and that's an example of one where they do have rules. It's important we follow those rules because otherwise you wouldn't know whose turn it was. We may not be sure of how the game is organised or set up. It could become quite chaotic. So that's a good example of something we really enjoy, which has rules which, unless we follow them, it might not be as much fun or go as smoothly as it should do. So as we go through the rest of this assembly, just be thinking around why there are so many different situations where we have rules and laws to follow. So the law is something that we all have to obey. And importantly, which is a really key point of this value in Britain, it has to be fair. So that law has to affect everybody equally, and it has to be enforced and monitored in an equal way. And that's another important point about our country's interpretation and focus on law. We've had laws in one form or another that have been written down or codified for quite a long time, going back 800 years. So you can see how as a country, as a developing country, as Britain has developed, we've always placed an importance on law. And as mentioned, we've got laws for school, we've got laws at the road, we've got a crossing there, but then we're also going to be having a look at other laws and rules around things like food, equipment, being online. All these things have laws and rules to make sure they're safe to follow. So let's have a look at today's question. Think about your journey to school that you normally would make. Think about how you get here. You come into school, you have your school day, you learn, you're with your friends normally, and then you leave school, mum and dad pick you up, grown up picks you up, and you make your way home. Within that time, how many laws do you think have kept you safe? And you can see the options in front of you: 5, 25, 500, or even more than that. So how many do you think it is? Shall we have a look? It's actually too many to count, hundreds of them. And what I've tried to do to give you an example of why is to give you some laws that you've probably never realised keep you safe. So things like the Food Safety Act, making sure that any food we have for your school dinners is prepared properly. Electrical Equipment Regulations Act, making sure that all our equipment is safe and the electricity in school is set up in an appropriate way for our size. Road traffic regulation, that's one that you probably are aware of if you make your own way to school. How do we make sure that we're safe outside school for both people driving and for pedestrians? Education Act, so actually an act which actually stipulates and says what sort of the things that school has to do. And Malicious Communications Act, for example, making sure we're treating each other properly when we're communicating. They are just 5 of hundreds of different rules and laws, some massively complex, some more simple, around how we keep you safe. So it shows you how complicated it can be. So let's have a look at some examples of when laws have been broken. We can see here we've got a vehicle, the windows being smashed. Maybe someone's broken in. There is a police crime tape, so it seems like it's a crime scene. Maybe something's been stolen, or maybe it's just vandalism. Someone's broken the window deliberately. Either way, a law has been broken there because private property belongs to whoever that car is owned by. So, and also the property, if it has been taken, is also been stolen. It's a crime. Here's an interesting one, because we've got a toaster from the dodgy toaster company. But I can see the toaster's just started to catch fire, which isn't very safe at all. That's going to be a problem. I can just see at the bottom, we don't test our products. I wonder if one of the laws that this example is talking about is how, when it comes to products that we use, we have to make sure they're safe, we have to make sure they're tested, and we have to make sure that they're appropriate to use. And you think about how many different things you use in the course of the day, and there must be hundreds of laws for all of those things which we use. Here's one that's outside, and we can see we've got 2 cyclists, and we've got, it looks like a red filter light. Cyclist B looks to be doing the right thing, foot's on the floor, they're stationary, they're not moving, they're waiting just about on the line, but cyclist A is moving forward, and I can see that they've obviously not taken into account the light or the rules there. It's possible that maybe they've been breaking that particular road traffic law, and they're putting themselves at danger because a car may be coming through which may not know or may not realise that this cyclist is on the move. So, as you'll be aware, I'm sure, from the work you did when you were very young on people who help us, if we break the laws, then in our society there is a consequence, there is a punishment. It could be, if it's a criminal law, that the police are involved and they have to come to support that, make sure people are safe, do an investigation and work out if anyone needs to have a further consequence. If there is a further consequence, it's possible that it will be brought before a court of law, where different individuals will look at the evidence, look at what's happened, and decide whether or not the person who's potentially broken the laws needs a punishment. It could be a fine, where they have to pay money. It could be a warning, depending on what's happened. If it's a more serious crime, then it could be that they're sent to prison, where they have to stay in an area where they can't do very much day after day to reflect and to consider how they can improve. But again, that tends to be for more serious crime, and there's lots and lots of different guidance and rules the government has to follow and courts have to follow to decide what happens when different laws are broken. One important thing about Britain is that we have a very important entitlement trial. So you can see this is a Lego trial here. I've got the judge, I've got the different people involved, I've got the different lawyers. And what will happen here is that the person who's being accused will have a fair trial. They will get to say their side of the story through their evidence, as well as any evidence against them. That evidence is then listened to by members of the public who could be picked, and mums and dads and other grown-ups may have actually done this, and they're picked to listen to that evidence and then to decide whether or not they feel that the person who's being accused of the crime is guilty or innocent, and then the judge will support the jury with their decision and then decide on what the consequence will be. But that's important because it means that if you are accused of something, you are given a chance to show how actually it's not actually true. So you can argue against it, or at least put forward what your view and your evidence is. Now, some things to think about just to end our assembly. New laws have to be made up as time goes on. and I can just put the building blocks there. You can see the different eras: Victorian era, turn of the century, even 2050. What might things look like in 30 years' time? Why do you think that new laws have to be made up? That's one thing that I want you to think about. Why do new laws have to be made? And the second thing that I want you to think about is it possible you can have too many laws or rules? What might happen if you have got laws and rules for absolutely everything? Is that a good thing, or could there be some disadvantages? So think about that as well. Thanks very much. I'll see you next week for our third assembly. I hope that's given you a bit of an overview of law and why that's so important, a British value to us in our group of countries. Best wishes to you all. Keep on working hard, and I'll see you soon.